There have been reports that China may indeed start to liquidate some of their treasury holdings.
The Chinese are the second largest holder of U.S. treasuries.
$9 trillion of outstanding U.S. treasuries in total. China holds 400 billion of them.
And it's a huge amount of money.
It's so huge, Sue, it's called China's nuclear option, as you know, and that refers to financial, not ballistic weapons.
If you want to know how it works in Washington, basically, China gets what it wants. We're going to be increasingly dependent on China for our own economic health, so we're going to have to figure out a way to get along with them.
In the fall of 1956, the world was on the brink of a major international conflict. America's allies, Britain and France, were engaged in a battle against Egypt over control of the Suez Canal. The Soviet Union was threatening to intervene on the side of Egypt. America wanted to avoid military action at any cost and demanded that the British and French allies withdraw from the region. When their request was denied, the U.S. turned to financial warfare. America, which at that time owned much of England's debt, threatened to sell off or dump a significant part of its holdings in the British pound.
So, as far as going into any kind of military action under present conditions, of course we're not.
This would have effectively destroyed England's currency. The result? All British and French military forces withdrew from the Suez region within weeks. Some historians consider this the exact moment that the British Empire ceased to exist.
It took 42 presidents, 224 years to run up $1 trillion of U.S. debt held abroad. This president has more than doubled that amount in just 6 years. Last year, we borrowed 65% of all the money that was borrowed in the world by countries, 10 times as much as the next biggest borrower. That's why this debt is jumping so dramatically, and it just fundamentally threatens our long-term economic security. If we don't deal with this, our children and grandchildren are going to have a much different life than we have enjoyed. We'll be in such deep haunt to the rest of the world, we'll be dependent on the kindness of strangers. We'll be dependent on other countries continuing to loan us vast amounts of money.
If 15 or 20 years from now, 2 or 3% of the GDP is being paid abroad merely to service the debts or the ownership of assets that have been incurred because we're over-consuming, that will be politically unstable.
We finance these deficits and this debt by borrowing money from other countries, Chinese, for example. What implications does this have for our foreign policy if we're in hock to other governments? Does that give an American president flexibility to make foreign policy decisions, or do we have to worry about what our bankers think?
We have to worry about what our bankers think. You know, when the debt clock was turned off, I thought this is going to get ugly, because it sends a signal that the problem is solved. And those of us that were looking at the long-term numbers knew that the problem really wasn't solved, and frankly weren't very surprised to see the debt clock go back on again a few years later.
Just before we leave Money Matters this evening, in New York City today, the man who owns the national debt clock has decided to start it again. It shows the United States owes more than $66,000 for every American family. That's more than $6 trillion in all. The sign's owner turned it off almost 2 years ago, and now he says we need to be reminded that the surplus is gone and that deficit spending is back.
Well, my father had many ideas of how to bring out the growing danger of the debt. At one point, he sent out a card, a New Year's card, to all the people in Congress and the Senate saying, Happy New Year, you owe the federal government $30,000. When we put this sign up, we moved it from around the corner and we put it up over the entrance to the IRS, which we thought was very appropriate. The Clinton presidency, the clock we had then could not run backwards, so we covered it up with an American flag. This clock will be able to run backwards. Hopefully we'll get to a point where we can do that. We're rapidly approaching $9 trillion. Unless we're able to reverse the growing deficit soon, we're going to have to order up a new sign.
As our mothers told us when we were growing up, when you have a little bit of extra money, be careful to make sure it doesn't burn a hole in your pocket. Well, quite frankly, it burned a hole through the pocket, through the floor, and, you know, a good way through the planet.
Do you think there's a risk of a recession? How do you rate that?
You know, you need to talk to economists. I think I got a B in Econ 101. I got an A, however, in keeping taxes low and being fiscally responsible with the people's money. States and our allies have prevailed.
Direct way of presenting ideas has stirred up some controversy since being sworn in as Treasury Secretary on January 20th, 2001. There is no doubt O'Neill has a very difficult job.
President Bush 43 asked me to come back to the government and be the Secretary of the Treasury, which I did for 23 months before I got fired for having a difference of opinion.
For the record, the White House is saying that Treasury Secretary Paul O'Neill and top economic advisor Larry Lindsey tendered their resignations voluntarily.
The Vice President said, the President's decided to make some changes, and you're one of the changes. And what we'd like to do is have you come over and meet with the President and basically say that you've decided to go back to the private sector. You know, for me to say that I've decided to leave the Treasury is a lie, and I'm not into doing lies, and so that was it. I went back to my office, latched up my briefcase, and went down to the parking space that's reserved for the Secretary of the Treasury, got in my car, and drove back to Pittsburgh. Well, you know, it's a first in my life. I'd never been fired before. I'd only been promoted to ever higher levels of responsibility, but you know, it was okay with me because I would have really been uncomfortable arguing for policies I didn't believe in. I argued during the second half of 2002 we should not have another tax cut. That was not a popular view, and in fact it led to a conversation with the Vice President where he basically told me that we don't have to worry about deficits. You know, which I got to tell you was really a shock to me. You know, when the Bush 43 administration took over, We had something over maybe $5.6 trillion worth of national debt. Today I think the number is $8.8 trillion. That's not an innocent change. It is a monumental change in the debt service that we have to do, in addition to and on top of all of the other things that our country needs to do. You know, I think we only need to look at the fate of other countries who've lived beyond their means for a long time. You inevitably get into trouble. When you get extended to the point that you can't service your debt, you're finished.
If you look at what's happened to great republics in the past, they generally have not fallen because of external threats. They've fallen because of internal threats. Let's look at Rome as an example, which is the longest-standing republic in the history of mankind. The Roman Republic fell for many reasons, but three seem to resonate today: declining moral values and political civility at home, overconfident and overextended militarily around the world, and fiscal irresponsibility by the central government. You know, we need to wake up, recognize reality, and make sure that we start making tough choices sooner rather than later, and that we're the first republic to stand the test of time.
The purpose of today's hearing is to examine the fraud, waste, and abuse in the federal disaster assistance programs.
New allegations of massive waste of taxpayer money.
God, the books are cooked routinely year after year after year.
Disaster assistance money was used to purchase items such as a $450 tattoo.
Some of the U.S. and Iraqi money that was supposed to help rebuild Iraq was instead buying a lavish lifestyle for some of the people in charge.
$20,000 for resort accommodations in Hawaii.
Estimate $1 billion of fraudulent and improper payments.
According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
$1,300 handgun.
All costs were passed on directly to taxpayers.
$400 massages.
What is it you're doing here? You don't have any money. The American people don't have any money in this government. All they have is debt.
$5,000 for a divorce attorney.
This year, there will be a deficit in terms of our overall budget and spending this year.
$200 bottle of Dom Perignon, purchased at a Hooters restaurant.
And Girls Gone Wild videos.
What is this, Comedy Central?
Some people think that we can solve our financial problems by stopping fraud, waste, and abuse, or by canceling the Bush tax cuts, or by ending the war in Iraq. The truth is, we could do all three of these things, and we would not come close to solving our nation's fiscal challenges. Here's how bad our situation really is. We already have approximately $11 trillion in total liabilities, including public debt. To this amount, you need to add the current unfunded obligations for Social Security benefits of about $7 trillion. Then add Medicare's unfunded promises, $34 trillion, of which about $26 trillion relates to Medicare Parts A and B, and about $8 trillion relates to Medicare Part D, the new prescription drug benefit, which some claimed would save money in overall Medicare costs. Add another $1 trillion in miscellaneous items, and you get $53 trillion. Our country would need $53 trillion invested today, which is about $175,000 per person, to deliver on the government's obligations and promises. How much of this $53 trillion do we have? Zip. By the time today's college graduates are ready to retire, 40 years from now, the only things our government will be able to pay for are interest on the federal debt and some Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid benefits. All other parts of the federal government will be closed and out of business.